42 narco vessels destroyed in one night. Caribbean waters turn red with America's fury. November 1st, 2025. 11:47 p.m., 60 miles off Venezuela's coast. The largest drug trafficking operation in history was about to meet its end. A fleet carrying $8.3 billion in cocaine, enough to supply every user in North America for 6 months. The cartels called it Operation Serpiente Dorada, the Golden Snake. They thought they were invisible. They were wrong. This wasn't a movie. This was the U.S. Navy's most classified anti-narcotics mission ever conducted. And by sunrise, the Caribbean would never be the same. The intelligence came in 3 weeks earlier. NSA intercepts picked up encrypted chatter between Sinaloa and FARC remnants. They were planning something massive, a coordinated drug convoy using decommissioned fishing vessels, go-fast boats, and semi-submersibles. 42 vessels total, all converging on a single coordinates point before dispersing north toward the U.S. mainland. The DEA had been tracking cartel movements for months, but this was different. This was industrial-scale trafficking. Each vessel packed with cocaine bricks, military-grade communications equipment, armed escorts with RPGs and heavy machine guns. The cartels had invested $340 million just in the operation itself. They'd bribed port officials across 3 countries. They'd coordinated with corrupt naval officers. They believed they had every angle covered. U.S. Southern Command received the final briefing on August 10th. The decision came from the top. This fleet would not reach international waters. The Navy would intercept. The Navy would destroy. If you're already hooked by this real-world naval operation, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're diving deep into the tactics that made this mission possible. USS Winston Churchill, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, led the task force. 9,200 tons of guided missile firepower. Aegis combat system with AN/SPY-1D radar, capable of tracking 100 targets simultaneously. Alongside her, USS Monterey, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser with 122 vertical launch cells. And lurking beneath the surface, USS Albany, a Los Angeles-class fast attack submarine. Silent Hunter, eyes in the deep. 3 Coast Guard cutters joined the operation: USCGC Hamilton, USCGC Stratton, and USCGC Monroe, each equipped with MH-65 Dolphin helicopters, precision boarding teams, non-lethal suppression systems. This wasn't just about sinking ships. This was about capturing evidence, seizing cargo, and sending an unmistakable message. The narco fleet began its convergence at 9:15 p.m. Radar contacts started appearing on screens aboard Churchill. First 5 vessels, then 12, then 28. They were forming up exactly as intelligence predicted. A swarm of contacts moving at varying speeds between 8 and 35 knots. The go-fast boats zipped around the perimeter like angry hornets. Semi-submersibles maintained low profiles, barely visible above the waterline. The cartel commanders felt invincible. They'd done this before on smaller scales. They had spotters. They had encrypted comms. They had contingency plans. What they didn't have was awareness of what was watching them from 40,000 feet above. A P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft circled in the darkness, multi-mode radar painting every vessel, infrared cameras capturing heat signatures, data streaming in real time to the task force below, every movement, every position, every thermal reading from engine compartments. The Navy had complete situational dominance. At 11:32 p.m., the order came through encrypted channels: execute Operation Steel Net. Churchill's crew went to battle stations. Alarms echoed through steel corridors. Sailors sprinted to weapon stations. The Aegis system came fully online. Fire control radars energized. targeting solutions calculated in milliseconds. This was what they'd trained for. This was why the Navy existed. But here's what made this different. This wasn't a conventional engagement. These weren't military targets. The rules of engagement were crystal clear. Disable, board, seize. Deadly force only if fired upon. The goal was maximum impact with minimum casualties. Destroy their capability, capture their cargo, dismantle their entire operation. What's your weapon of choice for a maritime interdiction mission like this? Type A for helicopter assault teams. Type B for fast boat intercepts. The Coast Guard cutters moved first. Hamilton accelerated to 28 knots, her bow cutting through Caribbean swells. Her MH-65 lifted off the flight deck at exactly 11:40 p.m. Rotor thunder echoing across dark waters. Infrared searchlights illuminated the first target, a 60-foot fishing vessel riding low in the water, overloaded with cargo. The helicopter dropped to 40 feet, door gunners visible on both sides. Loudspeakers boomed across the water in Spanish. U.S. Coast Guard, cut your engines, prepare to be boarded. The fishing vessel's crew panicked. They gunned the engines. Fatal mistake. Churchill's fire control team had been tracking them. A single shot from the Mk-45 5-inch gun. The round struck 20 feet off the bow. A water plume erupted 80 feet into the night sky. The message was instant. The fishing vessel's engines died. Hands went up. But 12 other vessels saw what happened. They scattered. Go-fast boats slammed throttles forward. 35-knot speeds in seconds. Rooster tails of white water behind them. They thought they could outrun the Navy. USS Monterey launched her MH-60R Seahawk, equipped with AN/APS-147 multi-mode radar and FLIR targeting pod. The helicopter climbed to 2,000 feet and acquired all fleeing targets. Data fed directly to the cruiser's Combat Information Center. Targeting solutions updated every 3 seconds. One go-fast boat made a critical error. Its crew opened fire with AK-47s toward the hovering helicopter. Muzzle flashes visible in the darkness. Rounds sparking off the water 300 yards short. But they had fired on U.S. forces. The rules of engagement just changed. The Seahawk's door gunner returned fire with the GAU-21 50 caliber machine gun. Precision bursts. The go-fast boat's outboard engines exploded in flames. The vessel spun out of control and capsized within 40 seconds. Crew members floundered in burning fuel and seawater. Coast Guard rescue swimmers were already inbound. This kind of detailed tactical coverage takes serious research and production time. If you're finding value in this breakdown, hit that like button to support the channel. 3 semi-submersibles attempted to dive. These weren't true submarines. They were low-profile vessels designed to run just beneath the surface. Fiberglass hulls, diesel engines with snorkel tubes, radar cross-section of a floating log. But they had one weakness: heat signatures. The P-8 Poseidon above picked up their engine exhaust. Infrared cameras locked on. Coordinates transmitted to USS Albany lurking below. The submarine sonar had already painted the underwater picture. 3 contacts moving at 7 knots. Depths between 15 and 30 feet. The sub-commander had options. Albany surfaced just 400 yards from the nearest semi-sub. Her sail broke the surface like a black mountain rising from the deep. Deck hatches flew open. Armed sailors poured out with M4 carbines. The semi-sub's crew saw the submarine and immediately shut down engines. They surfaced. They surrendered. No shots fired. Pure psychological dominance. By 12:15 a.m., the situation had cascaded. The narco fleet realized they were surrounded. Navy destroyers on the horizon. helicopters overhead, Coast Guard cutters closing from multiple vectors, a submarine in their midst. This wasn't an interdiction. This was a trap, a steel net closing with nowhere to run. 17 vessels cut engines and surrendered within 10 minutes. Crews threw weapons overboard. White flags appeared, T-shirts waving from makeshift poles. Coast Guard boarding teams moved vessel to vessel. Zip cuffs, evidence bags, cargo inspections. Each boarding took between 8 and 12 minutes. Precision operations drilled thousands of times. But 9 go-fast boats refused to surrender. They split formation. 3 headed east toward Trinidad. 4 went south hugging Venezuela's coast. 2 made a desperate run north into open ocean. They were running on pure adrenaline and bad decisions. Churchill's fire control radar tracked all 9. The Mk-45 gun could engage surface targets at 13 nautical miles. But there was a better option: precision, efficiency, unmistakable demonstration of capability. At 12:28 a.m., Churchill launched her first RGM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missile. The canister exploded open. The missile roared into the night on a pillar of flame. Active radar seeker acquired the target at 8 miles. Terminal approach at 537 miles per hour. The Harpoon struck a go-fast boat's center mass. The 488-pound warhead detonated. The boat disintegrated into flaming debris. Pieces scattered across 200 yards of ocean. There were no survivors. The other 8 boats saw the explosion. 3 immediately cut engines. Hands up. Surrender. They'd rather face U.S. prison than that missile. 5 boats kept running. Churchill launched 4 more Harpoons in 90 seconds. 4 contacts eliminated. Precision strikes. No misses. The cost of each missile? $1.2 million. The value of the cocaine those boats carried? $780 million. The math worked. The final go-fast boat made it within 2 miles of Venezuelan territorial waters. So close. The crew thought they'd found sanctuary. But USS Monterey had been tracking them the entire time. Her MH-60R Seahawk dropped to wave-top altitude. The door gunner fired warning shots across the bow. The boat kept running. What would you have done in the helicopter crew's position? A boat running toward hostile territorial waters with $65 million in drugs aboard. Comment your tactical decision below. The Seahawk pilot made the call. He dropped to 30 feet directly ahead of the boat. Rotor wash created a wall of spray and turbulence. The go-fast boat hit the disturbed water at 35 knots. The hull went airborne. It flipped end over end. Crew and cargo ejected into the Caribbean. The boat landed upside down and immediately began sinking. Coast Guard swimmers pulled 3 survivors from the water. 2 were found dead. 1 was never recovered. The cocaine bales floated like white squares across the crash site. Every single brick was recovered. By 2:47 a.m., 41 vessels had been seized or destroyed. 1 vessel remained. A 90-foot cargo ship registered in Panama. She'd been running dark without transponders. No lights, no radio. She was 18 miles southeast trying to blend with legitimate commercial traffic. But Albany's sonar had never lost contact. The submarine shadowed the cargo ship from 2,000 yards, passive sonar tracking every propeller revolution. The cargo ship's captain thought he'd slipped away in the chaos. He was sailing directly into Churchill's intercept course. At 3:10 a.m., Churchill's searchlights blazed to life. 6 million candle power illuminating the cargo ship from 800 yards. The effect was instant shock. Loudspeakers echoed across the water. This is U.S. Navy destroyer Winston Churchill. Cut your engines immediately and prepare to be boarded. The cargo ship tried to run. Her engines revved to maximum. Black smoke poured from her stack. She made 9 knots. Churchill could do 30. The destroyer closed within 400 yards. The Mk-45 gun traversed toward the cargo ship. The barrel elevated, 1 round into the water ahead of her bow. The plume rose 90 feet high, visible for miles. The cargo ship's engines stopped. Her crew lined up on deck with hands visible. Coast Guard boarding teams fast-roped from helicopters onto her deck within 90 seconds. Systematic sweep. Cargo hold inspection. What they found exceeded every estimate. 4,200 kilograms of pure cocaine. Street value $840 million. Military-grade communications gear. Encrypted satellite phones. $3.2 million in cash. Weapons, ammunition, ledgers with names, routes, and payment schedules. This wasn't just a drug shipment. This was an intelligence goldmine. The sun rose at 5:52 a.m. on August 16th. The Caribbean looked like a military exercise zone. 41 seized vessels under tow. Coast Guard cutters packed with detained crew members. 247 suspected traffickers in custody. Churchill and Monterey maintaining security perimeter. Albany submerged and patrolling below. The final count staggered even seasoned DEA agents. 47,000 kilograms of cocaine seized. Total street value $8.3 billion. That's more than the GDP of some small nations. 5 vessels sunk, 36 captured intact. Equipment and cash worth $43 million confiscated. It was the largest maritime drug bust in history. If you've stayed with us this far through every tactical detail, you're exactly the kind of viewer this channel is built for. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss content like this. The intelligence haul proved even more valuable than the drug seizure. The encrypted phones contained contact lists for cartel leadership, payment schedules revealing corrupt officials in 4 countries, GPS coordinates of drug production facilities, supply chain documentation. The DEA called it a Rosetta Stone for understanding transnational organized crime. Within 72 hours, coordinated raids hit targets across Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, and Central America. 14 high-value cartel leaders arrested, 3 drug production labs destroyed, $120 million in assets frozen. The operation's ripple effects dismantled trafficking networks that had operated for over a decade. But the message sent that night transcended mere law enforcement. The U.S. Navy had demonstrated something cartels thought impossible: total maritime dominance, real-time intelligence, precision engagement, overwhelming force applied with surgical accuracy. The Caribbean wasn't an open highway anymore. It was a monitored choke point where American technology and training created an inescapable net. Naval analysts called Operation Steel Net a paradigm shift. It combined traditional Navy destroyer capabilities with Coast Guard law enforcement expertise. It leveraged submarine stealth with aerial surveillance. It used non-lethal tactics when possible and lethal force when necessary. Most importantly, it worked. The economic impact hit the cartels immediately. Cocaine prices in U.S. cities spiked 40% within 2 weeks. Supply chains disrupted, distribution networks in chaos. The Sinaloa cartel alone lost $2.1 billion in product and equipment. Smaller organizations collapsed entirely. The risk-reward calculation for maritime trafficking fundamentally changed. Some critics questioned the cost. 4 Harpoon missiles at $1.2 million each. Operational expenses for 3 warships and a submarine. Fuel, personnel, logistics. Total mission cost approached $18 million. But measured against $8.3 billion in seized narcotics and the disruption of trafficking networks, the return on investment was undeniable. The legal proceedings took months. 247 suspects faced federal charges: conspiracy to distribute cocaine, money laundering, assault on federal officers, weapons trafficking. The evidence was overwhelming: seized ledgers, intercepted communications, testimony from captured crew. Conviction rates exceeded 95%. Sentences ranged from 15 to 40 years in federal prison. Venezuela protested the operation. They claimed the Navy violated their territorial waters. They demanded return of seized vessels and personnel. The State Department's response was diplomatic but firm. All interdictions occurred in international waters. All actions complied with maritime law. The evidence spoke for itself. 3 months later, satellite imagery showed abandoned cartel facilities along Venezuela's coast. The infrastructure built to support Operation Serpiente Dorada was useless. Multi-million-dollar investments in boats, equipment, and logistics sat rusting. The cartels learned what military planners had known for decades. You cannot outrun technology. You cannot hide from integrated surveillance. You cannot defeat a navy that owns the battle space. Was this operation a devastating blow to drug trafficking, or just a temporary disruption? Did the Navy's overwhelming response deter future large-scale operations, or just force cartels to adapt? Leave your analysis in the comments. The lessons from that August night resonate through naval doctrine today. Maritime interdiction requires layered capabilities. Surface ships provide firepower and presence. Submarines offer stealth and psychological pressure. Aircraft deliver surveillance and rapid response. Coast Guard brings law enforcement expertise and boarding proficiency. Integration isn't optional, it's essential. Training intensity increased across all units involved. Destroyer crews drill Harpoon launches more frequently. Coast Guard teams practice fast rope insertions in challenging conditions. Submarine commanders study surface interdiction tactics. P-8 crews refine their coordination with surface vessels. Operation Steel Net became a case study taught at every naval academy and war college. The cartels adapted. They shifted tactics towards smaller, more dispersed operations. They invested in better counter-surveillance. They improved their intelligence networks, but they never again attempted a convoy of 42 vessels. The risk was too great. The Navy had proven they could detect, track, and destroy any maritime trafficking operation regardless of size or sophistication. American adversaries watched carefully. China noted the integration between Navy and Coast Guard forces. Russia analyzed the speed of tactical decisions. Iran studied the effectiveness of Harpoon missiles against small surface targets. Every nation with maritime interests learned the same lesson. The U.S. Navy's power projection isn't limited to traditional warfare. It extends to any domain where American interests are threatened. For the sailors and Coast Guardsmen who executed Operation Steel Net, the night became legend. They'd participated in history. They'd protected American communities from poison that would have destroyed thousands of lives. They demonstrated that service means action, that training matters, that when called upon, America's naval forces deliver overwhelming, precise, unstoppable force. The Caribbean waters returned to normal shipping patterns. Commercial vessels resumed their routes. Fishing boats worked their traditional grounds. But beneath that surface normalcy, everyone who transits those waters knows the truth. The U.S. Navy is always watching, always ready, always capable of turning any maritime zone into a demonstration of American power. This is what deterrence looks like in the 21st century. Not speeches or treaties, but capability combined with will. The cartels gambled $340 million on Operation Serpiente Dorada. They believed they'd found a way to beat the system. They were wrong. 42 vessels proved them wrong. $8.3 billion in seized cocaine proved them wrong. 247 arrests proved them wrong. To every trafficker, every cartel leader, every criminal organization that thinks the ocean offers sanctuary, that night delivered an eternal message. There is no hiding place. There is no safe passage. There is only American naval power, and it reaches everywhere. Your engagement shapes what stories we tell next. Drop a comment with what military operations you want covered. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you're here when we break down the next incredible display of U.S. military capability. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand that America's defenders don't sleep, don't quit, and don't lose. The Caribbean remembers August 15, 2024. The night 42 vessels met their end. The night the cartels learned that America's reach is absolute. The night the Navy turned dark waters into a battlefield and emerged victorious without question, without debate, without mercy for those who threaten American lives with poison. Freedom isn't free. It's defended. And sometimes that defense looks like fire and thunder in the night, steel and precision, technology and courage. This was one of those nights. This was Operation Steel Net.